LeighAnn Lovely is the founder of Sales Rescue and the host of the Love Your Sales podcast. In this episode, we delve into the fascinating journey of Sales Rescue from its inception to its growth into a multifaceted service provider for both startups and established companies. Join us as LeighAnn shares her personal story of transitioning from an unexpected job loss to entrepreneurship, her strategies for scaling a successful business, and the common challenges many companies face, especially in hiring and retaining sales talent. LeighAnn offers a wealth of knowledge on creating robust sales processes, strategic planning, and the importance of trust and relationship building in sales. She also opens up about her experience with systemizing operations, the value of networking, and her passion for continuous learning. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or someone eager to enhance their sales strategy, this episode is packed with actionable insights and inspiring stories. Stay tuned for a conversation that takes you beyond fulfillment and into the heart of successful business growth. As always, if you found value from this content, please like and subscribe. And now here's my conversation with LeighAnn Lovely. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulas. This week, my guest is the founder of Sales Rescue and the host of the Love Your Sales podcast, LeighAnn Lovely. Welcome, LeighAnn.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited you could join us today. If you could, for everyone, can you just tell us about your company and how it came to be?
Yeah, so I am the co-founder. I actually merged with Sales Rescue. What it's now, I feel like it was just yesterday, but I started my business almost 2 years ago, Love Your Sales, which then we then merged to Sales Rescue a couple of years ago. A couple of months ago, with Brian Michael, so the co-founder. And it came to be because one day I was in a networking group saying, there is such a huge gap in the market for companies that are struggling with sales. They don't know where to go. They don't know, how to really get started, because entrepreneurs, have this great grand idea of what they want to be, and they'll jump out and start doing it. And then they realize, oh, you mean just because I have a product, just because I have a service, people aren't going to flock to me and become my client or my customer? So I said, well, what if I was your fractional salesperson as you were getting up and running? Would you like hire me? And somebody goes, yeah. Oh my gosh, if I could just do my thing and you were to go and sell and promote me, like that would be awesome, because I just want to do my coaching service or my accounting business. I don't know how to sell. And so all of a sudden, really quickly, I had a handful of clients coming. Actually, I had just been fired from a job. Like I was blindsided because I was producing, I was doing well. And they had decided that it was, a shift they wanted to make. And I landed 2 jobs within 24 hours of being unemployed. And within a couple of months, I had a job, or I had a business. And so I fell into entrepreneurship. And then I started putting the pieces in place on how to run a business. And it was something, don't get me wrong, it was something that I had always thought about in the back of my head, like, oh, being an entrepreneur, running a business, that would be fun. Fun. And so that's how it originated. That's how it started. Now almost we're in September. So almost 2 years later, so it'll be 2 years in January. We've flexed now to a team of 10 contractors. Right now we're like a train out of control, running towards flipping them to W-2 employees. And it's been a roller coaster ride. And what we do is We've now added on services, and we've now be able to offer a complete strategic plan on how to get your business up and running, and on the sales side, and assisting on some marketing.
Okay. Okay. So a lot to unpack there.
Yes.
So initially, right, you never planned on starting the business this way, get fired unexpectedly, and you said within 24 hours you already had a couple clients lined up. Like, what was that initial process like in terms of, did you just realize that, people needed help and it would be more of like a client vendor type relationship rather than going to work for them, and that's how the wheels started turning to do this?
Yeah. So initially, I got a phone call, of a friend of mine who started as a client and then quickly became a friend. He called me and he said, "Are you no longer at, XYZ company?" And I said, "Yeah, no." And I'm like, "How did you know?" And he's like, "Well, they called to, let me know that my account manager had changed." And I'm like, "Oh." And he goes, "That's fine." He goes, "Just come work for me." And I was like, "Well, I've been recruiting for your position. I know what you're paying. That's not going to make ends meet for me." And then I got another call the next day, and they were like, "Well, just come work for me." And I'm like, "I don't think you can pay me what I need." And I went, "But if I work both of these jobs part time, I think I can make ends meet. And I don't have to go back to corporate. Like, I can make my own schedule." And so all of a sudden the wheels started turning, and I'm like, "Wait a second. If I could get two in 24 hours based on my reputation in sales, I wonder." And so I was part of a mastermind group at that time. Um, and so I met with that group, and I said, "Could this be like an actual business? Would people buy what I have to offer?" And at that time, it literally was just, "I'll be your fractional salesperson. I will make phone calls and schedule appointments for you." Um, and then all of the pieces and all of the service offerings started to wrap in as I started to leverage different relationships. And it just kind of all naturally started to flow, with people coming out of the woodwork. I had a boss that I hadn't worked with nearly in 10 years call me and say, "Hey, I've got a great opportunity for you." And I was like, wow, this is like all of it's just kind of falling into place. What I didn't realize was how hard it was going to be on the back end, like getting my LLC set up and doing the invoicing and doing, because those aren't my area of genius. That stuff is the stuff that they don't tell you, like, "Oh, this is going to be hard. And by the way, the government's going to take a lot of your money." And you have to pay taxes quarterly. I missed that for like the first, couple quarters. And my accountant goes, "It's fine. You're a brand new business. You'll just back pay it. It'll be the first." Okay, great. um, there's a lot of things that you don't know, which means that you don't even know who to ask the questions to. And you kind of go, wow, am I in over my head? Like, did I make a mistake? um, so it was a lot. That first year, I think my husband probably wanted to kick me out of the house, divorce me, and never see me again, like 5 times, maybe even more. But it was, you know, the business side, the service offering that I have, people were literally coming to me in the beginning. It was just the stress as to, how do you become an entrepreneur? It's not just as simple as saying, "Hey, I've got a product," but we think it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's such a great point. Like, you don't know what you don't know beforehand. And then once you find it out, well, you got to deal with it, right? You got to figure it out. So what was like going through some of those challenges and those, running up against the things you didn't anticipate? What was your process like for solving those problems?
It was reaching out to other entrepreneurs. And I was lucky enough to have some really smart people in my network that I could reach out to and say, okay, like here's where I'm at. What what am I missing? And then it was having them go, okay, well, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you know that not only do you pay the state and you pay the federal government and separately when you do your quarterly taxes? And I was like, wait, no, but I paid, this. And they're like, yeah, you got to go to this side. So it was starting to ask questions and then ask, well, what am I missing and what am I not asking? And then really starting to track, because you don't know what to ask. So when you go to somebody who's been through it, you all of a sudden your eyes kind of open, you go, oh my gosh, like I didn't know. And even dealing with setting up your LLC, like there's things where you have to go to the state, there's things where you have to go to the federal government, where you're like, wait, I did that. There's so many small nuances that, yes, you can hire a lawyer, which is the easier way to do things. Just hire a lawyer and they'll set everything up. But when you're a single person that doesn't have, $5,000 to just throw at a startup, and you're literally just starting as a, like, hey, I'm throwing it out there that I'm an independent contractor, basically, you don't know what to do. And that was probably the hardest thing, because my dream was to become a business, not just an independent, contractor for hire, right? I never wanted to just be a one-man show. I wanted to have a team of 10, a team of 50, so I've leaned in heavily to some of my lawyer friends, some of my, friends who've run businesses, sold business, started new businesses, heavily leaned into those relationships.
Okay. And so you mentioned, right, your dream was not to just be a one man, one person show, but to scale and build a team. And you've done that up to a team of 10. So what was that process like in terms of getting enough business to bring other people in and then eventually partner with another company?
Yeah, that was probably, you get stuck to a point of, you're doing the sale, you're bringing in business, you're executing on the business, and you max yourself out, right? At least that's where I was stuck. Like, I can't go out and sell while I'm executing on the business or executing on what I do, which is, obviously becoming that fractional salesperson. So I met Brian Michael many years ago, and then as things were changing in his life, he approached me, and he came available. I tried to hire him into my business and quickly realized this could be a partnership. So as my business was transitioning and in trying to grow to no avail, because as I was growing, I would then plateau, then I would be executing on the work, and then I would drop again. It quickly became very apparent that I needed somebody else to be out selling, me executing, and then being able to bring somebody else in to help execute on the work, because of the type of work that I do. I can't execute, I can't sell, I can't. So it was apparent that for the type of business model that we have, that I needed to bring somebody else in. And instead of bringing them in as, an employee, it made sense for us to merge. And that's when it became apparent that, and don't get me wrong, this was not a simple decision. It was, because you're literally, when you merge with somebody, you become a partner in a business. You're basically marrying them for the life of your business. You got to be able to get along with them. You got to be able to, you got to think not necessarily the same, but at least have the same end goals and communicate. So over a series of months, we basically started dating in the business sense, right? Do we have the same common goals? And that's what, over a series of months, we went into meetings, we talked about, our goals, what our future looked like. And eventually it was like, yep, this is going to work. So we signed that, we've got our operating agreement together, all of that, and signed. From that point, he became really the salesperson. I became operations. And that's when it became clear that we were going to be able to scale and quickly bring on, other people to execute on the work.
Ah, okay. So you got stuck in that trap initially of just having to do everything yourself. Kind of got to a point where you plateaued and you couldn't grow because you're bogged down.
Yeah.
And then through a partnership where you can focus on your expertise and then Brian can focus on his expertise. And then you have it set up in a way that you can scale and systemize things and bring other people on. That sounds like the secret sauce to really grow in the business.
Yes, absolutely. And you said the exact right words, making a system, creating that system so that it's repeatable, right? Because if you have no systems in place, no processes in place, it's not sustainable. It's a mess. And up until that point, my processes were all in my head. And so I actually reached out to somebody and said, like, I need to get the processes because I know them all. And I come from an HR background. I know all my processes, but they're all in my head. How do I train somebody to do what I do, to follow these steps so that we execute on the work properly for the client? So I met with a coach to help me figure out, how do I lay this down and create workflows for every client that comes through the door. And so that's what bringing in Brian, where I could step back from the constant bringing in new business, create all those workflows, create the processes so that I could bring in somebody, hire them on and go, okay, here's the workflow. Here's what we do. Obviously there's you have to have some type of background that fits the role like any other, job. But, and that's what we've now been able to accomplish in a very short period of time. But that's, I think, the key to any business that's going to scale, right? I mean, you can't just hire somebody and be like, okay, welcome to the company. Go over there and do that stuff. There's got to be some form of, here's what it looks like. I also believe in, the creative aspect to, hey, if I'm going to hire somebody new, I want you to bring your own flair. If you have recommendations on a better way to do this, please let me know, because we are new. We're still growing. I want to allow my team to, if they see a better way to do it, hey, come to me and let me know, and let's see if we can improve this or make it easier for you.
Attention manufacturers and e-commerce sellers. Is fulfillment a headache for you? Whether you're fulfilling in-house and you know you need to outsource, or you're with another 3PL and you know you deserve better service, Easy DC 3PL can help. We offer personal service, fast response time, and we're flexible to meet your unique needs. Get in touch today and find out how we can help you. Yeah, and that's a great perspective too, right? Because so many people out there too, maybe ego gets in the way, or they can't accept those type of, even call it constructive criticism or whatever, suggestions to change. Do you think part of the journey and going through that, all those stumbling blocks and not being able to grow initially, you think part of that helped, in essence, humble you and be open to help from other people and suggestions and all these type of things that now are helping you grow?
Absolutely. I think one of the most important things that an entrepreneur needs to have is a little bit of that humility. I think that if you've stumbled, the only reason that not the only reason, I sometimes play down my abilities. The reason that I was successful in the beginning is because I had a cheering section, and that cheering section was the group of people that I went to and asked for advice and then followed the advice that I was given, which is hard for people. They'll go and ask for advice, they hear it and they're like, okay, yeah, I can see how that would work. And then they ignore it. They don't follow through. But when you ask for advice, it means that you're stuck. What is the point of asking if you're not going to try what other people are going to, and making sure obviously that you're asking advice from a group, from somebody who's either been there, done it, seen it. So making sure you're asking from, the right people and surrounding yourself with the right people. But I asked for the advice from, and they got me as far as I was. Then I, got to a point where it was like, okay, now I think I've grown from that. Now I need to find a new circle, because now I've hit the ceiling there. And I learned that from actually a book. So I'm going to, do a call out here. Jamar Jones, he wrote a book, Change Your Circle, Change Your Life. And he talks about, we've all heard the phrase, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? It's part of how you have to continue to educate yourself and level up. I don't want to be the smartest person in a room. That's, it's great for everybody else if I'm giving out the advice to everybody, but I'm never going to grow and learn if I just continue to stay in that room. I want to go into a room where maybe I'm the dumbest person and I'm going to soak up all of the knowledge. But it means nothing if you don't execute on that knowledge that you're soaking up. And that's how I live my life. I want to continue to learn new things. I want to continue to learn from the successful people and then implement what matters in my business. Because obviously not everything is transferable, but if they're finding a successful way to do something, or a better way, or a more sustainable way to do something, well, I want to bring that into my business to figure out how to do it better, how to do it more, efficient, cheaper would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a great takeaway. Why even ask for the advice if you're not going to execute?
Right.
That's I love that perspective. Okay, so now do you, with the merger now and what you're doing and the scaling of the team, are you still primarily focused with companies that are starting out, or has the service offering changed?
Yeah. So no, we're not just working with companies that are starting off, we're working with companies that are looking to scale and grow. And that has brought us, companies that are launching new products, that are just looking to, get additional business. I'm working with a company right now that has been around for a long time, 2018. And they're just in a growth mode, and they wanted to shake things up. They wanted to, fix their landing pages on their website, improve their SEO, and become more social. They've been reliant on referral based. And so now they're really putting an emphasis on making sure that all of their social media are all swimming in the same direction. Instead of having, dips and valleys of their sales, they want to make sure that it's more consistent and on an upward trend versus, having these dips and valleys. So we've implemented a 3 months, strategic way of doing that for them. Bringing in, a variety of different tools that we can assist them with. Because we also offer a CRM. And so we're helping implement, different tools on how they can to do that, ultimately bringing them to hiring additional salespeople to be out on, the ground, boots on the ground, selling products. So we work with, all different sizes. From very small to a one person organization who just wants additional appointments being set. And because we're flexible in our program, It's not a, hey, here's the plan. It's a $10,000 buy-in. Um, we can do a la carte services. We have a lot of companies who are like, I just don't have time to do social media. We have a marketing branch where they'll take over just the social media. So there's a lot of different things. Whereas some of your traditional marketing companies will, they want to take over everything. Like, we have to do a website, we have to do this, we have to do that. And it starts at like 5,000. And for a small company, it's just not feasible. But we can pull pieces out as they grow and scale.
Okay. And working with so many different companies, what would you say is the most common challenge that you're hearing that companies are having in terms of their sales and sales team and the approach and whatnot?
Yeah, we hear a lot of, we struggle to hire the right person, and then retain that salesperson. Unfortunately, this is the market that we live in. I think what the average now person is staying at a job for 18 months, which is scary to think. But then we get a lot of training. We also do training for salespeople. But it's very industry driven. If you talk to manufacturing companies, it's a lot of the getting the right person, the right salesperson in the seat that understands what their cycle looks like. So it's really industry driven as to what problem we come across. And because we service so many different industries, we have an e-commerce, company that obviously their problem is going to be quite different than, manufacturing, where their problem is the dips and valleys of like, we want the consistent sales. How do we get people, to see us and not have all of a sudden we run an ad and now we've got, 300 new customers, but then we stop running that ad and it just completely tapers off. Like, how do we get that consistency? So there's not, it's hard to say if there's just a consistent one. I mean, the companies that come to us across the board, they're coming to us because they want more sales. It's just a matter of, okay, what industry are they in? And where do the people that buy hang out? And so then it's a matter of us sitting there doing an analysis of, well, where do your sales come from? And then we figure out how to fill in that gap. Sometimes it's the cold calling. Sometimes it's social media. Sometimes it's, other avenues. So.
Okay. Now, I've noticed too, since I've been a founder publicly, I get pitched by all sorts of different people constantly, bombarded. Every day I get new cold DMs, calls, people that have Zoom info, whatever, right? And even at shows, events. And I even wrote an ebook last year that was based on all the horrible sales attempts. It's called The 5 Bad Sales Habits That Are Killing Your Deals and How to Fix Them. So I've experienced that. So I'm curious to know, from someone that's been in sales for as long as you have and now running the sales consultancy, like what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see salespeople making?
Yeah, it's what you pretty much just said. Like, don't connect with me on LinkedIn to send me an offering. Like, I'm not interested in. I get, like you, probably 20 people saying, I've got the greatest list in the world. Do you want to buy my list? No, I don't know who you are. I don't know where, like, people don't buy from people they don't know, like, and trust. Unless it's an immediate, like, Amazon thing. But even when you're buying from Amazon, they have a reputation. They've built that reputation over a very long period of time. So we already know, like, and trust Amazon. It's just one of those things. Like, people, I will not buy from Joe Smith, who just DM'd me, hey, I'd love to connect and be part of your network. Okay, great. Let's connect and be part of my network. Then don't immediately send me hey, here's the service offering that I do with like a 10-page like thing of all of your SEO, blah, blah. Like, really? That's going to be the first message you send to me? No, I don't know you. I don't like you probably even more now. And I don't trust you. Salespeople assume that some salespeople assume like, oh, I've got the best product on the market. Why wouldn't they buy from me? You've got 8 billion other competitors, not 8 billion, it's a little excessive, but you've got a million other competitors out there who are doing the exact same thing. Why are you different? And that's what it comes down to. You, as an individual, not as a company, as an individual, have to differentiate yourself in front of the person you're trying to sell to, because they're not buying that product, especially in a saturated market. They're buying you as an individual. That's the world we're in, except when it comes to commodity product, the big buy. If we've got, if you're standing on, you're standing in an aisle of 18 billion different cereals, you're there to buy a cereal, you're going to buy, that's a different story. But when you're talking about, an insurance agent, for instance, you can't just call somebody and say, buy my insurance. I'm going to buy from an insurance agent that I've gotten to know, that I like, and that I trust. Because when something goes wrong and I am in an accident, I want to know that I can call that person and they know who I am.
Also,
So the number one mistake that people make is thinking that they've got something that's greater than any other product, and then just trying to shove it down as many people's throats as possible. You have to build up your recognition, and that comes in many different forms. That can come in networking, that can come in the form of social media, that can come in the form of, and I'm not talking about blasting that individual. I'm talking about creating a reputation around who you are. Now, that's for smaller, I'm not talking about enterprise sales where, it's a little bit different. But when it comes to actually like hitting the market, and it's what it comes down to. I have so many people in my network that on a regular basis, I will get somebody in my inbox saying, hey, so-and-so told me to reach out to you. Oh, okay, great. Let's have a conversation. Let's find out why.
yeah, and I love that too, in terms of like you nailed it with the know, like, and trust. And I think it's patience too, in terms of so many people are so impatient that they're just trying to sell to make a sale, even if it's not the right fit. And if it's not the right fit, trust me, the buyer is going to be the first one to realize that.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know if it's a lack of training or just a large quota or people just wanting to get to the commission, but there certainly seems to be just like, I guess it's a prescription before diagnosis, you call it, right? Which is malpractice, as my friend Darren Jacklin says.
Absolutely. And that's the other, salespeople, they like to talk, right? And often early on, salespeople make the mistake of over talking, not listening, not hearing, and missing what the problem is. And then selling a solution that doesn't fit what the problem is, or not getting to what the problem really is. There's too many times where, especially in the staffing days, when I was selling staffing services solely, that you'd go in and they're like, oh, we need to hire this person. We need to hire this person. We need to hire this person. Where in reality, it was like, well, wait, do you really need to hire all of these different people, or do you maybe need to shuffle some responsibilities around or train the people you have? Or because often HR people are so overwhelmed, they listen to their leaders as to what's, and then they just make that quick decision of, oh, okay, you need to hire somebody. Oh, you need another person. If you come in as a consultant, and this is how I became very good at my job when I was doing staffing, you come in as a consultant and you really listen to what's happening at that organization. Sometimes it's not necessarily about hiring another person. It's about let's figure out, like, and again, I'm not talking about like the labor roles or that kind of thing, but sometimes it's not necessarily about like hiring another person. Okay, well, what's happening? I've had companies say we have a hiring problem, or I'm like, you don't have a hiring problem. You have a retention problem. Why do you have a retention problem? Do you need training for your managers? Because it sounds like you have one manager here that's really pissing off all the rest of the employees that come in here. Maybe instead of that, before I send a new employee to come and work, we should address the problem that you have everybody starting and then 3 months later quitting. And sometimes the managers don't even know. And that's when you become the best salesperson. When you actually help solve the problem before you try to say, yeah, I'll hire 4 people for you. Because then the manager goes, oh my gosh, now we have solved the problem. And when we hire these people, they're not leaving. And you just saved me $25,000 per person, because that's how much it cost. That was back in the day. It was like 30,000 or something per head every time you hire somebody on and do the training. So one of the biggest mistakes that salespeople do is that they listen to the problem that person's telling them that they have, but they don't hear everything that they're saying. Because sometimes that problem is not exactly what the person thinks it is. If you become a partner, you're so much more powerful to help them identify a problem that they may not even know exists. And I've seen that in my career so many times.
Yeah, I love that distinction too, in terms of approaching it from a consultative approach, a partnership approach, and then you get to the real solution, even if it's not what the customer first thought it was. Okay. Now also the Love Your Sales podcast, you have that. What inspired you to start a podcast?
This is my 3rd podcast. My first one years ago was with a company that I was at, and I pitched it to the owner. I said, why don't we do a podcast? This was, around the COVID time, getting information out there. And I thought, I have clients who are coming to me asking me the same questions. Like, why don't we do a podcast to help them navigate some of these things that are happening with COVID and all of this other stuff? And so I started that. Then I left the company, so the podcast stayed there. And so I fell in love with podcasting. You kind of get it under your skin, don't you?
Yeah.
So I then started my own personal podcast called Let's Talk HR. And that actually became very personal for me, because at that time I was still working corporate. I was still doing, HR, doing staffing. And I had something, some personal stuff to say. I have always, I'm a huge supporter of the neurodiverse community. I myself have bipolar disorder, and that has always been, I grew up thinking that that's the dirty secret that I would always have to keep from the world, because, I'm 43. At the time that I was diagnosed, it was a secret. And, I had an employer who found out, and I was terminated 3 days later. And so I decided that I wanted to do my own. And I started off with, hey, I've got bipolar, and let's talk about things that need to be talked about. And during that time period, like I said, this was now a couple, some time after COVID. And I really wanted to humanize conversations that HR departments were having, because those are the people I was, selling to, but talking about things that, that other people were itching to hear about. Now, fast forward, I had obviously pivoted to running my own company, and it was time to, change it up a bit. So I sunsetted Let's Talk HR, and I started Love Your Sales. And again, it's another podcast about helping people. You have one about the entrepreneurs, and mine really focuses on not only entrepreneurs, but the sales side of entrepreneurship, and what it's like to what we have to do and how to be a better salesperson, managing salespeople, because there's all these little nuances to salespeople. I'll tell you that managing a salesperson versus managing a manager are very different. And I've heard so many times the operations team talk about, God, I hate the salesperson, because they are two totally different mindsets. and they'll bump heads so much. And I started to really hear this when my husband would come home, because he's on the operations, he's a press operator, and he'd come home and he'd go, God, I hate salespeople. And I look at him and go, you're married to one, right? He's like, well, yeah, not you, obviously. And I'm like, well, obviously. But it was like, why is there such this like disconnect, to the point where we've actually had to hire like project managers that like is the buffer between the salespeople and the operations team? It's like, why? And so it just made sense. Like, let's talk about, let's talk about that. And let's talk about how marketing and sales don't get along. So, because again, there's a personality to a salesperson. I'll tell you, Brian, my business partner, is a true through and through salesperson, where there's sometimes where he'll call me and he does what I call a brain dump. He's like, I've got this going on. I've got this going on. I've got this going on. I'm like, can you put this in an email? And he's like, no. Okay. All right. So we've got him a recording device where he can actually like, brain dump into that, so that at least I can like get notes, because they are it's a different mindset. It's a different personality.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. All right. We'll appreciate the detail on all your podcasts. And if people want to get in touch with you and find out more about your company, Sales Rescue, and how you might be able to help them, what's the best way that people can reach out to you?
Yeah, they can reach out through our website, which is rescuemysales.com, or they can reach out to our business line is 414-973-2798. That is, that'll reach out directly to our office. You can also find me on LinkedIn. It's LeighAnn Lovely. I believe I'm the only LeighAnn Lovely. But yeah, I mean, any way that you want to reach out to me, I am always open to having a conversation. You can also, reach out to any one of our salespeople, but we have a Sales Rescue LinkedIn site there as well. So you can drop us a message there too, or follow our page.
Okay. Excellent. And we'll link all that in the show notes for everybody.
Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Well, LeighAnn, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Enjoyed our conversation. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Dave, it's been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right. And that's all the time we have for now. We will see you next time.